Hey everyone, I just wanted to kind of start this video off with a little bit of just kind of like a quick little intro before we get into the interview. I just wanted to say thank you to Vorborg again for conducting for even reaching out to me to do this. It was an honor and a pleasure. It's just it's crazy to think. I kind of started this podcast as just kind of just something because I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of opinions about the team and about the game, and I felt like it was an opportunity where EG doesn't necessarily have a lot of content, and so I figured it would be an interesting thing to do just for myself. And honestly, truly, it was just for myself. It is just for myself. That was why I did the videos in the first place. I didn't really expect any views. I didn't really expect anything like that. It was just more so something that I thought would be fun for me to do. Kind of take my mind off of work and whatnot. And so for me to be conducting an interview with the head coach of the team, obviously is something I never expected, and am extremely grateful for. And so, just wanted to say thank you. Um, there is going to be a cut in this video that will be quite obvious. I promise I'm not leaving any content out of the video. Unfortunately, while I was in the middle of recording, the my apparently I had too many videos. Because I've saved all these videos that I've done for the podcast on my desktop, and I actually ran out of space, so I had to delete all the videos in order to get more space to conduct the interview again. So that's why you're going to see a jump cut. About 20 or 30 or so minutes into the podcast. It's not, trust me, it's not me leaving anything out. It's just a little bit of an issue there. By the way, it's like, let's see, it's 12:30 at night right now. Trying to I had to edit some stuff. Not only just the jump cut, but also when I originally recorded this, you'll see in the new background that I created. Essentially, essentially, what happened was I was testing the background, 2 nights ago, I guess, when you guys will be seeing this, with a friend. And originally in Discord, when I was recording the face cams, my face cam was shown on the top, and then my friend's face cam was shown on the bottom, and basically, that was not the case when I conducted the interview with Vorborg. It kind of ended up being flipped, and I didn't really say anything because I figured I could just move the face cams around, but it took a lot longer than I thought. So we're here. But um, but it's all good. We figured it out in the end. Really just wanted to say thank you to everybody, and also I want to be more involved with the EG Discord. I figure this is a good time to mention the EG Discord. I'm in the EG Discord, but I've never interacted really with anyone in the EG Discord. I don't know if that's something that people are really doing. I don't know how much traction that gets. But if there's anybody who, just kind of just wants to talk about Counter Strike, or just wants to talk about EG in general, um, or could maybe even educate me a little bit more about Dota 2 and League of Legends and some of the games that I want to talk about, but I maybe don't know as much information. Just give me, just reach out to me. My socials are in the description, as well as, and when you'll see in the next background, you can see my Twitter handle is there as well. So give me a shout. Yeah, I don't really know how active the EG Discord is, but I figured might as well throw that in there and see if anybody would actually be interested in something like that, right? Just to talk to them. I don't know about like having a multiple people on the pod. That's something I'm still trying to figure out because obviously there's a lot to that when it comes to scheduling and kind of making sure that me and the person that I bring on have good chemistry and can, maybe, don't are sensitive with the topics at hand because you just don't know sometimes. You never want to speculate about something to the point where it's getting out of hand, and that's something I want to manage, obviously. And also, just honestly, when I first created this podcast, it was kind of something that I was doing on my own, mostly because it's easy for me to just kind of think through my own opinions and make a video on my own. I've done all of this stuff on my own, and frankly, it just makes it a little bit faster for me, especially because my I have a job, I have a full-time job, and also I have studying that I have to do for some licenses that I'm trying to get. So it just doesn't leave me with a whole lot of time, and sometimes scheduling can be quite difficult. So that's kind of my logic behind all this. I'm sorry I'm rambling a little bit. I'm gonna, don't worry, end this soon. You can skip ahead if you want. Um, but yeah, just really wanted to use this section to say thank you to Vorborg, and also to say, I don't know how active the EG Discord is, but I'd like to get involved in some way if people are watching this, and I don't know how big the community is there, but I play Counter Strike in my off time. So even if it's not just talking about the teams, if it's even just playing games, like I'm down to do that too. Obviously, like I said, free time isn't as often as I would like it to be, but it's something I'm trying to work on. Yeah, just kind of hope you guys can enjoy the interview, and yeah, I can't believe it. I know we're only at like episode 15. We got a long way to go. I'm definitely gonna make more episodes. Good thing I didn't start this podcast beginning of this year, at least for the Counter Strike team, because it would have been rough. But I think I've started at a good place, and I think overall I'm really excited about all the things to come for EG, and just looking forward to making more episodes. Yeah, here you guys go, and thanks for listening to my quick little ramble. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Evo Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is the podcast where I talk about pretty much everything Evo Geniuses, or at least I try to. And this is a little bit of a special episode. I've been keeping this under wraps. I've literally told nobody about this. I haven't told my family. I haven't told my friends. I've said absolutely nothing. The only person who knows is my roommate. Because he had to know. But other than that, I've told absolutely nobody. And so this is Vorborg, who is the coach, the head coach for Evil Geniuses. And I just real quick also just want to say you were giving me a lot of thanks before the interview started, and I just want to say I actually am very thankful for you because like we were talking about, EG has been a little bit shaky in the past in terms of being open to the public and kind of saying things and being interactive with the community. It's definitely been a struggling thing, and you do AMAs all the time when you're about to go on flights and stuff. And to me, that's something that not only do not many people do that, but you don't have to do that. That's only something that you're really doing out of the kindness of your own heart. And so I'm just very appreciative of that, and thankful for any opportunity that I have to interact with you. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, no problem. I truthfully I enjoy it, and if I do an AMA or something, I enjoy every single person that gives me a question, because to me it's just amazing that people care about what we do, And if people didn't care, there were no jobs to be had. So I think it's very very important that we appreciate that people give a damn about our jobs, because yeah, they wouldn't exist if people didn't. So definitely trying to give back as much as I can.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess to kind of just get started, I was going to kind of just ask you some questions about yourself, about kind of how you got into the position that you're in now with EG. And so the first thing I was wondering was kind of just we were kind of talking about it a little bit, but like how were you, I guess, introduced into Counter Strike in terms of just like getting used to the game, and where did you really like eventually, obviously, like when did you really think like, oh, okay, this is something I can actually like coach and do full time, and is really possible for me?
Well, for if we're talking like professional, then it was in Copenhagen Flames. When I joined, we didn't have a Counter Strike team, and I had, well, I had coached in League of Legends before joining Copenhagen Flames, and I had also dabbled a little bit in, I guess, working as sort of a performance coach. I worked with a sports psychologist in one of my League of Legends teams, and that really opened my mind and my world to how interesting those topics are and how you can help the athletes. Just like only talking about how to like optimize how you work and optimize how you think about things, and like keeping your mental strong, and just all the little distractions and obstacles that we like our mind puts in like in front of us, that we don't need to put in front of us, but like everyone does it. and something we don't even think about. And I had like one off season in League of Legends where it was before I was in Copenhagen Flames, and I actually asked the founder and owner of Copenhagen Flames, Stefan, if I could help his teams in any way. Like he didn't have League of Legends, so I told him I'm not going to be able to help with anything game related, but I would love to just kind of hone my skills in like performance coaching, I guess. So I ended up working with an Overwatch team, leading into an event and helping them at the event. And they thought it was. I also helped their Counter Strike team actually a tiny little bit, and they were actually playing with Cadian at the time for one tournament. He was like a stand-in, but they were practicing leading into the tournament. And both the Overwatch team and the Counter Strike team thought I had some like good things to bring, and I thought that was cool that I could also bring something that even though I knew nothing about a game, I could still help them out. So when we ended up signing a Counter Strike team in Flames because it was the biggest game in Denmark and we wanted to be a part of that, we couldn't. We had a very hard time finding a coach, and for us, it was like our biggest investment into any esports team Flames has ever done. So it's very important to us that it went well. So it just kind of felt natural that I would. In the beginning, I didn't, but then we had a contract team, and then after like 2 months, then they like fell apart because no one was like keeping check on them. No one
Yeah.
was like helping them deal with their issues, all these things. And then we were like, well, we're spending a lot. Well, compared to how much money we had, we're spending a lot of money. But compared to we're
Yeah.
talking like $1,000 each or something. In
Right.
a
Yeah.
monthly
Yeah.
salary. So I mean, for a lot of people, not a lot of money, but for us, a lot of money at this time. Like I didn't take a salary or anything like that, so but it just felt natural that I was gonna spend more time with them, like make sure the investment is actually fruitful. And the only thing I did was just like the performance coaching part, making sure we're all on the same page, making sure everyone agrees with the conclusions that being made, make sure that we make conclusions in the first place. If there are any issues, make sure we deal with them before they grow too big. And but then in doing so, I was there for like every single practice, every single official game, and then slowly you pick up on things. Like you hear discussions. Even though I don't understand Counter Strike at the time, I understand logic. So
Right.
if I ask like, why is it good that we play like this? They,
Yep.
I need to hear them explain to me in a logical way why that makes sense. And
Yep.
if it doesn't make sense, I'll keep asking questions because I can hear if they're in doubt themselves, or I can hear if they don't quite know, or and sometimes they would just like give me a straight answer right away, and I'll be like, great, then I know we have this figured out. Let's move on to the next. But then we might end up in similar situations, and I can see that I'm like, hey, didn't we talk about, last time you told me this was the logic behind why we do things. Now I feel like this is a similar situation and we do something completely different. And once in a while, that would be like, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's actually true. And other times they'd be like, but then you don't understand Counter Strike. I mean, X, Y, and Z changed, so now it's completely different. And I'll be like, oh, okay, well, at least you understand it. And then again, that
Right.
gave me a little bit more understanding of Counter Strike. And that more or less went on for the better part of like 3 years that I was just the interim coach. We did have like short stints with other coaches. Texans, DJL, and Pita coached at
Oh, okay. Yeah.
different times, but never for like a long time. I think it was like maximum like 4 or 5 months at a time. And then it wasn't until like our first major, we Pita left for Dignitas, and we were looking around at options, and the team. It was like a team decision. It wasn't like me that forced myself onto the team. That the best move, because also Copenhagen Flames grew, and we had way more staff, way more back office staff, so I could let go of more of my responsibilities.
Right.
Even if I was there for like all the practice and all the officials, I would, as soon as practice was done, I was working on the business. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
thinking about Counter Strike at all because we also had a business to run and grow. But at the time where we had been at our first major, it was easier for me to let go of running the business. Um, So we had the opportunity for me to go full time on Counter Strike, also spend all my time outside of practice, and that's when I really started to attempt becoming smart at the game. I mean, I knew a lot of things just from again listening to discussions for like 4 years straight, um, but then I started to try and formulate more of my own opinions and like also challenge the views of the players. And it started out very very small, but then I guess you could just gain more and more confidence. Like I would go to hooks and
Right.
I would be like, hey, wouldn't that make sense if we did this instead, or wouldn't this be like a good round? And like 4 years ago, whenever I would suggest something, most of the time they'd be like, nah,
Nah.
that doesn't make any sense. But towards the end, then hooks would be like, yeah, I mean, yeah, that does actually make sense. You know, yeah, that would have been good. And then your confidence builds on that. But definitely heading into EG, I also then had like I was a bit nervous about if I was smart enough, if I was good enough at my game. I also think if you ask Valens or Automatic or any of the other guys, I think they would say that I undersold my knowledge. But I definitely didn't want to. I still don't feel that way. I don't feel like I'm the smartest guy alive about Counter Strike, and I know everything. And give me 5 players, and I can teach them how to play Counter Strike no matter what. So I definitely didn't say that either in my
Mhm.
job interviews. But yeah, I guess that was after the first major. Just to answer your question, that was like when I really started trying to. And I mean, I guess it's the feedback loop from the players that they appreciated the things that I did that gave me the confidence to. Because for me, it was a big leap to leave a more like director of esports role, and then
Right.
because I feel like I knew I was going to be great at that role, but
Mhm.
trying my hand at like full time head coaching, that was a risk on my part, I would say.
Yeah. So kind of, piggybacking off of that a little bit, um, in terms of, you know, why did you end up going with the EG position? I'm not, I have no idea if there was anything else that was available to you. But was there something that they said about maybe the idea of the project, or what they wanted to fulfill, that got you excited about the project, or was it something, or was there just, what were the options like?
Yeah, I did have very very strong options also outside of EG, and I'm obviously I won't like
Right.
name the
Yep.
teams, but I do think that I think most people would probably think I'm crazy for picking EG because there were like
Yeah.
some, I mean, teams that's very commonly in the top 5 in the world and things like that. So, but what I really liked about EG is one thing, like I was used to being the boss, and of course, like together we were like 3 co-owners in Coming Flames that made most decisions. But one of the reasons why I joined Flames was because I I wasn't happy with a lot of the decision making made in the other organizations I've been a part of. So I took a lot of steps back to join Coming Flames, because then I was like, well, now it's on me to make this work, and I really like that idea. So if I was to quote unquote just be an employee moving forward, then it was very important to me that the people above me, that I respect them, and that I believe that they're smart people, and that they're logically driven people. There are a lot of people that make a lot of decisions based on emotions, in my opinion, and I
Yep.
really dislike that. Um, and on top of that, it was important. I come from League of Legends, and League of Legends we have huge coaching staffs.
Yes.
We have like you have positional like each player can have their own coach. You
Hmm.
have a head coach. You can have a strategic coach. You have an assistant coach. You have, I mean, like there's so many things, and I don't necessarily know if it's used optimally yet. But
Right.
everything in my mind when I think about it logically is just like like why would that not be helpful? Like why,
Yes.
like how can it not help a player if there's a guy that watches through every single practice he ever plays, every single official he ever plays, and then he has a feedback loop within, because I, as a head coach, like I always like I miss things in every single practice because I can only watch one guy's POV.
Right.
And I mean, sure, I could go through, like, we record our practices, and yeah, I could go through every single player's POV afterwards, but I don't have the time to do that. We also need to prepare for the next opponent. I need like big picture thoughts and all these things, right? So
Right.
I have this vision that long term, I don't think we can't just hire 10 people tomorrow and just be like, let's work together, because I think you slowly need to integrate people. But EG has that similar vision to me, that we can do better than what Counter Strike is doing right now. We also get mocked a lot for that, which I don't get at all,
Yeah.
but that is what it is. But those are like the two main things that made me choose EG was that I have my first conversations was with Andrew, who doesn't have too much to do with Counter Strike anymore,
Yes.
but he was at the time. Then I had a conversation with Lindsay, and then finally I started talking more with Soam or Valence as
Yes.
he was put in charge of CSGO, and I have an enormous amount of respect for all three of those people, and I think now I mainly work with Soam, and yeah, I mean I appreciate him so much, and I just had the best feeling in the conversations with him, um, and like the plan he has and how he views things and how he can improve. I'm just 100% sure no matter what obstacle we hit, I can have a conversation with Soam and everyone else in EG, and we will find a solution that we can all be happy with. Um, and that's like the main reason why I chose EG.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So kind of, I guess, you know, transitioning, or I guess, you know what, real quick, kind of, to go off of that a little bit, more, was it obviously for you, was it strange or not strange, but what was it like, like getting adjusted to, a brand new organization with, um, you know, uh, you know, I don't know if there's any cultural changes or differences, between, evil geniuses and how they, operate compared to, Copenhagen Flames, because I believe Copenhagen Flames was pretty much all in Denmark, right?
Yeah,
Or so, in terms of being, now into an organization that's not only much bigger, but you've got people with different backgrounds coming in, and kind of, you know, uh, I guess, how did they do in terms of getting you, or helping you feel a little bit more comfortable, adjusting to that environment?
yeah. I think for me it wasn't too big of an issue. I did spend a lot of time in Copenhagen Flames, 5 or 6 years or something. But prior to that, I spent also like 5 years being in a lot of different esports clubs. I lived in Spain for a while working in G2. I lived in Germany working with different teams, but like Splice that was also American owned, so all
Right.
my like
Yes.
meetings and everything was with the Americans. And I lived in Turkey, in Istanbul, working with the team for several months. So I've experienced a lot of different cultures prior to coming Flames, so I didn't feel like that was too big of an issue. I think the biggest thing in EG compared to every single team I've ever been in is that EG is much bigger. And like esports has also just grown from like it's 6 years since I've been in like G2 or something, so I'm sure
Right.
G2 is also a lot bigger now than they were when I was there. So there's a lot more bureaucracy. Is that I'm not sure if that's the right word. My English isn't always the greatest, but yeah, just there's a lot more like hoops to jump through in certain aspects.
Right. Yes.
Um, and in the beginning, I didn't necessarily know like who to go to, and I
Hmm.
think now we have solved that. And like here in the after the season, like during the like I got hired, and then we flew to Serbia for the first boot camp, and then it's just been like CS, CS, CS.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
now we've had a little bit of time to also like evaluate and reflect on how some of the processes can be better,
Right.
and also just me understanding better like who is it okay I go to, and can I skip some of these hoops potentially. And so I think especially for the next season, everything will run even smoother for me personally, because now I have an actual connection with some of the people
Right.
that can help me out, instead of me having to bugger Nate, who's been our team admin, or Soham, or anything like that. So everything is working a little bit smoother now. But that was like the biggest thing for me, is I just needed to understand who decides what, and what are the processes to like being on this podcast, for example. Like
Yes.
we have like a PR team. In
Right.
Copenhagen Flames, like I could just I do whatever the hell I want.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I was obviously, I mean, I'm allowed to go on this, so it's not like I'm too restricted or anything. But there is like a team that needs to
Yes.
think about if that's a good idea, and I need to,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah. So yeah, that's been the biggest change.
Okay. Yeah. So now, kind of transitioning a little bit more toward, the main roster. Um, I guess best place to start really is just Nealon. Being a young IGL in the team, also being from a completely separate country. Just I'm sure that's a lot of that's very new for him, but just kind of also uh, kind of explain to me like what were your first impressions of Nealon, whether that's outside of the game or also in terms of like how he thinks about the game. And yeah, just kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew Neil probably not personally, but like as a player, I knew him fairly well. We played a lot against K23 incoming Flames, and we never thought they were an easy team to play against. So that definitely gave me some like initial respect for him. I also he's from Kazakhstan, and you get very bad
Yes.
ping playing from Kazakhstan.
Yes.
So playing in K23, he basically lived like year round in a boot camp place in Russia instead, which also gave me a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Like that you are willing and capable of sacrificing staying with your family and friends for basically like 8, 9, 10 months a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dedication that like shows that you're willing to do whatever it takes to have success. So I think that that's something that's very important about Nealon is that I think he's still, and this also includes me. I think he also had some learnings this season we just had because we had like traveling straight for 6 weeks, only
Yeah.
living in hotels. Um, you want to do your best to impress your new teammates. I think both me and Neelan probably got burned out a little bit. I think we both pushed ourselves a little too hard to begin with, and we kind of suffered a little bit from that. So, but outside that, I mean, Neelan is he likes to play. I call it like ping pong CS, where it's like someone has like a good idea of how to like get an opening or maybe get a first kill or something, and then someone else is supposed to be like, okay, if you do that, then I do this, and then like a
Right.
third person can maybe if you do this, I do that, and then everyone's kind of like chiming in with ideas and like building on top of each other, and just like just playing off of each other. And I think he's very smart when it comes to those type of things. Uh, he's of course like less experienced, so I would say he
Yes.
hasn't been like as strong of a leader as let's say I'm used to. Like I've had Huxian, I've had Asilian, and
Hmm.
they've definitely been like stronger leaders in that aspect. Where Nealon has also he probably came in and he was like, okay, automatics on a major circuit and
Right.
breach.
Yes.
They've also been number one in the world, so
Yes.
kind of like taking obviously seeing him leader. I'm not saying he's not like coming up with ideas and strats. He's called like he's doing all of those things still. So
Yep.
don't like it's not that he's not an in-game. I'm saying like for an in-game leader.
Right.
So he's also just had to like find his place. But I think he definitely feels more empowered now as well. Everyone's comfortable with each other. He knows that even though the other guys have won majors and they've been number one, they're still looking a lot to him to like they want to accommodate his play style and what he's comfortable with.
Hmm.
So I think, well, if we go through all the players, I think for everyone, we spent these like 3 4 months really like finding each other, and I think next season we'll be able to progress a lot faster. Also, me as a coach, I'm also used to doing things in one way. I don't necessarily think that's the best way with this group of players we have right now.
Right.
So we've all been learning, but yeah, Neelan is like he's very willing to take criticism, very willing to like soak in knowledge from other people, and yeah, then trying his hardest to like make that work for the team. So he's very pleasant to work with.
Right. So, you know, uh, you guys didn't have a whole lot of time, uh, with this roster, especially. I think there was mentioned, I think there was only about 3 weeks or so before blast groups or something close to that. Um, and so, this roster's basically just been playing Counter Strike and been absorbed in Counter Strike this entire time, and didn't really get enough time to really, delve into kind of what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, and really, I guess, expand upon that, especially, coming into the major. And so, I guess throughout this entire little, I guess, a lot of people are calling it now like they're breaking them into seasons. So for
Yeah.
this season, what do you think you guys did really well, and what are things that still need to be looked at, need to be improved upon, as we go into the next season?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind as like a core strength of the team. It's not necessarily on the server, but everyone is very easy to work with. Um, everyone's like constructive. Everyone is willing to take criticism. Everyone's willing to do things in a different way. No one really has like any big egos, or no one's like set in their way of doing things. Obviously, people have experiences and they have ways they like default to do things, but everyone's like willing to try doing things differently, and that makes it a lot easier for us to troubleshoot as we go along, because no one's gonna like oppose a solution. Of course, we like discuss if it makes sense and we discuss different solutions, but if the team as a whole kind of agrees, no one's gonna like, yeah, oppose that and be like, no, like that's, I don't believe that's good, or that's not how I want to play Counter Strike, or so we don't have anyone that's like destructive to our progress, which is a very important first step. Um, but again, that could be a little bit of a double-edged sword. So we could also need more people to push each other more, because we are very nice to each other, which again can be good. But again, if you want to be the world's best, you have to push yourself. But the good thing about being a team is that you can help by also pushing each other, and we could definitely do more of that. I also think it's easier. It's gonna be easier moving forward because now everyone knows each other. I think when you first get to know a person, it can be hard to push them and be like, "Hey, what you're doing, I don't think that's great. I think you should do things differently,"
Yes.
because you're a little bit worried how people might take that. But something we spent a lot of time talking about, I think it's incredibly important we establish very direct and open and honest communication between players. I do think we should be able to tell, of course with respect, but you should be able to tell a teammate that something he's doing is bad or it can be better, because that's the fastest way to improve. And I'm trying to get us to be as good as possible as fast as possible. That's what all the players should aim to do as well. Um, then I think on some of the maps, on some of the sites, we've really it's like clicked for us how you can play beautiful mid-round Counter Strike. For example, in our nuke T sites, I think if you watch some of our, I think I can't remember if I can give a good example, but I think against Furia at the RMR, I think we played a very good T side nuke if I remember correctly. But we at least played some of our T side nukes where you can see that individuals are taking space, and depending on the information they get, then the rest of the team is reacting to that space that they're getting, the information they're getting. And I think playing that kind of Counter Strike is like my ideal goal. But then we're still in the progress as a team. Then, like our T side against 9C was terrible on Nuke, and what we've evaluated on, it comes down to that if we're scared of playing against teams that are aggressive in the beginning in Yard on Nuke, then that slows down, which it should. Like it slows down how fast we take space in Yard,
Right.
and because we need to be a little bit more, we need to use a little more grenades. We need to be a little
Yes.
more like, maybe we need to bring more numbers to begin with to like deal with the aggression.
Hmm.
All these things, and that kind of offsets the timings of when we can have a pack ready in lobby to react based on like what the players in, all these things just change,
Yes.
and we have like 15 seconds less on the clock, which also
Right.
takes away some options later in the round and all these things. But that's like an issue we didn't encounter before towards the end of the season, so we haven't had
Right.
time to fix that yet. So that's hopefully something then we'll fix for next season. But
Yes.
that's like just the motions you have to go through as a new team. You do things, they work great, then suddenly you face another playstyle, then it's horrible. Then you need, okay, against this playstyle, then we need to be able to do this, and so we're just building on that. But I think um, we're learning to like play the Counter Strike that I love, where it's a little bit more like mid round, and it's about people taking space and other people being able to understand how they should play depending on how much space a teammate is given.
Yes.
Where I think some of our players in the past have played on teams where they had to take less individual decisions because the objective of the round has maybe been more set from the beginning. Which you can also play Counter Strike like that, and a lot of teams are successful. I believe it has a lower ceiling, but potentially also a higher floor playing like
Yes.
that. But I am very idealistic, I would say, in the way I view Counter Strike, and I'm often striving for the high ceiling, but I'm also learning to implement more things to make our floor higher. So that's also something we'll be working on for next season.
Yes, and kind of, I guess, also hearing your kind of like your idealistic vision of how to play the game. Many times we've heard that, you and Automatic and Nealon, I'm sure maybe Valens even gets involved. I'm not sure. He seems like a pretty busy guy, but you guys get, into those long phone call conversations or just conversations in general, just about how the game works and just like game theory and whatnot. Um, is that something where maybe you guys kind of bounce ideas off each other based off of your own, I guess, idealistic ways of viewing the game, and kind of, how much has that helped you guys improve? Because at least from what I've been able to see, the team has, for the most part, improved at every event that they've gone to. Obviously, eventually teams are going to get used to what you do. They're going to look at your demos. They're going to see, okay, well, you've played Nuke against Furia and 9Z and all these other teams. So we're going to look at your Nuke and we're going to figure out, okay, what are they not doing? Where's the holes? That type of stuff. But, in terms of kind of, internally within the team kind of discussing, in those conversations, how much has that like helped, in these past couple of months?
I think it's helped a lot. I think it's something I think people underestimate how difficult it is to like create a new team. And I know some people
Yes.
might not say that this was a new team because we still had a core of Cirque, Automatic, and Breeze. But to me, changing an IGL, changing the coach,
Yes.
it's basically a new team. I mean, it
Exactly. Yes.
honestly also because the not to talk too much shit about the previous iteration, but I mean they didn't necessarily have a lot of success to like draw upon,
No.
so they were pretty ready to like we're starting from scratch,
Yes.
because not a whole lot was working anyway. So it was basically like creating a new team, and even though we all play Counter Strike and spend a lot of time thinking about Counter Strike, there's still a lot of like ways to view the game and how you should be playing the game, and also just like terminology. For example, the first talk me and Automatic had, it was I said I really like to play loose Counter Strike. That's like my idealistic way. And he told me he really prefers to play structured Counter Strike.
Oh, okay.
And then we talked for 3 hours, and then we actually figured out what I call loose is what he calls structured.
Oh, okay.
So there's like there's just because to me like loose is you go out to a round and you don't know what your end goal is.
Yes.
You're figuring that out as you go along. But for Automatic, it was like yeah, but but then we're structured in the sense that we all understand that if this space is given to us, then it makes sense to do this thing afterwards.
Yes.
Or if it's even more space is given to us, then this. And but I've never viewed because in my mind it's like 15 different possibilities or like 25, 30 different possibilities of what's gonna happen. So in my mind, like just like you can write that down on a piece of paper and like structure. Oh, like we heard the op on B on A in the middle, and like
Yes.
this position, this position, this position, and also on top of that we heard steps here or here or here or
Yeah.
here,
An
and
infinite
then
flow chart. Yeah.
there's like a correct decision to be made in like all these situations, right? But there's just so many situations. Um, so that's something new teams have to go through. Like we need to understand each other before we can actually work efficiently with each other. And we spend a lot of time trying to understand each other better over the course of these 3 4 months. I kind of have the like what I believe to be true is that it takes around 6 months to truly understand each other, and then I believe after those 6 months, that's when you can really start accelerating your progress. So I think we've worked through a lot of the common understanding, and I think we're gonna make a lot of big changes coming into next season in terms of how we work, how we structure ourselves, like how we approach discussions about the different maps. But I still expect that we have more work to do in this department. I don't think we're fully aligned yet. Um, but yeah, and obviously it would have gone even slower if we didn't. 2 days ago I had a 9-hour call with Automatic,
Oh wow.
just talking about anything and everything related to Counter Strike and the team and how we can improve and things like this. So Automatic and Neil, and also like especially in the first boot camp, I think they spend on average like 3 hours just talking about the game every single day for like 10 days straight
Wow.
outside of practice. Um, so obviously this is all helping
Yes.
achieving this goal of common understanding faster.
Right. And I guess to focusing in on Automatic and his perspective, because it's certainly it's most likely changed since the past couple years. After winning the major, then eventually having to, or he went and was a professional Valorant player. Um, and I've always, been curious as to, you know, uh, because a lot of people just they have the opinion that you play Valorant, you play it professionally, especially if you were a CS:GO player, it's just easy. It's just you know how to aim already, so there's really not much else to it. It's they're very similar in at least aesthetically in terms of how the basic functions of each game works. But from a strategic standpoint, I think they're very, very different. Um, and so, is there anything that he's kind of taken from his experience being in professional Valorant that has kind of, whether it's a a concept that kind of applies differently, a different perspective of seeing Counter Strike after playing another game professionally, that's kind of altered his viewpoints, or anything on for Counter Strike.
I think already before he played Valorant, he's a pretty structured guy in how he goes about his work and his improvement. He has a lot of documents and a lot of things written down and organized. But I obviously think he continued to work on that in Valorant, and I think Valorant gave him even more tools to do so. So how he like structured their playbook and all these sort of things in Valorant is something we're now like we've I guess taken kind of how he structured his teams in terms of like the playbook. We're kind of applying that to Counter Strike now. So at least like something he continuously have worked on also through Valorant. And we actually also have on a lot of maps we have some strategies that we have a concept that's basically built off of Valorant. We call it like drone splits. But it's basically in Valorant you like scout out information with the drone from Solo.
Yes. Yes.
We don't have a drone,
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're using a player as a drone,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then so we have some like concepts then I guess that are similar to Valorant that obviously came from Automatic.
Yes.
um, so I guess they're small things, and yeah, we have things. We have a concept called drone splits. So yeah,
It's pretty. Yeah.
that's
That's
as
pretty
straight out of
cool.
Valorant as it
Yeah.
can as it can get.
Yeah. And then I guess kind of now we're gonna kind of moving into Breeze and Cirque, who have been highly criticized. While some of it is justified, some of it isn't. Um, I think that's pretty fair to say. But
Yeah.
I think under your tenure and with Nealon as well, and everyone else in this new roster essentially, I think Breezy and Cirque have looked much better. They still are inconsistent, I would say. There's definitely there's games where you watch them play and you're just like, yeah, this is just what I remember from 2019. And then there's some games where maybe things fall a little flat.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been of the opinion that, um, you know, Breezy and Cirque, not only did they lose confidence, but frankly, they just weren't being put in the right positions for their play styles to really work. Like, at least for me, I see, Breezy is a very aggressive player at times. And so, just kind of making sure that you have the right situations put around them, I think is important. But kind of you know, why do you think that this iteration of EG has been able to at least start to piece together what Breezy and Cirque are doing a little bit better, and they've kind of started to gain some form a little bit?
Yeah. I of course don't know exactly. I have an idea of what happened before I joined,
Right.
but I think everyone in the team would probably subscribe to the fact that it's just a better environment within the team, more productive environment. People feel more. Uh, well, I mean, the first word that came to mind was safe, but I don't think they felt unsafe before. But just like you just know that your teammates are backing you up in doing
Yes.
things and trying things, and like for example, like Cirque definitely. I think I felt it even more in him. Also, he's just a more vocal player, I would say, than Breeze is. So you could definitely feel on him when we began that he didn't have a lot of confidence. And also as an AWPer, like you're
Yeah.
supposed to go for plays,
Yes.
and he rarely did. And when he did, if he like failed the once, then that was probably it, for
Hmm.
the rest of the game. So if he made a call like round four, it didn't work out, then yeah, okay,
Yeah.
he's not doing it for the rest of the this map. And so just reinforcing that, like I tell, I think I've also said this publicly, but I tell the players all the time, I really don't care if we win or lose. I don't care. It is not a success criteria of mine if we win games or if we lose the games. I think that's the completely wrong focus to have. I'm especially this early in the iteration of the team. Obviously, I enjoy winning more than I enjoy losing, but
Yes.
I mean that's not, again. If I'm to go to Valence and tell him like what players, or even just tell him how I think the project is going, I don't tell him. I mean, I think it's going great. I mean, we won 7 games in a row. It's amazing. Like for me, it's, for example, with Cirque, it's about he needs to be confident taking initiative, even if he's having a bad game, even if the first time it didn't work out, or the second time, or the third time. That the actions we take on the server and in practice is, it's not based on our emotions, not based on pressure or fear or insecurities, but rather it's based on our goals and values and what we know to be right. So I don't care if you're like 0-15 on the scoreboard. If you know that you should push now, like you should push,
Yeah.
or like you should take that fight. And so that's been something that we've been working on. And I think that both Breeze and Cirque are like adapting to and understanding. They like feel the support from their teammates and from the staff around the team. So I think that's definitely helped them a lot. And I think we've reached a point now where it's time for them also to like accelerate that moving forward. I think like now they're comfortable. Now they know that they have the freedom to do whatever they believe is right. No one's gonna like be mad at them if it doesn't work out. So now I feel like now we can truly start to like build on them as players, because now like that's like you need to have that locked in first before you can actually improve a lot.
Yes.
And even yeah, and that has taken us a little while. I think here towards the end, I think Cirque has the beginning. From the outside you won't know this, but the first like Cirque against Cloud9 at the major on Dust 2, the first 9 rounds was absolutely crazy. Like how much initiative he took, how much he made sure we were on the same page, and like we had lost short control, cat control, and then we are on Dust 2, and then we on A, so then we play for long instead, which
Right.
is
Yes.
everyone knows that.
Yes.
But then we also lose long control, and then instantly Circus, like telling everyone to like drop down CT. We go out, retake mid, and then we like retake
Yes.
like cat control or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's of course something we talked about as a team, but the way Cirque just like instantly got everyone on the same page, commanded people, this is what we're doing now. That was incredible to see compared to the Cirque I had at Blast. That was
Right.
like two
Yes.
different people. So yeah, that's been great to see. I agree, and I also like Cirque also agrees that he's still inconsistent, of course. So that's what we need to work on, and I think a lot of it is gonna come down to him and I and the team spending more time. He's been very focused on himself. Moving forward, he's going to be more focused on the macro aspect, understanding what the other team is trying to achieve and do. And then I think that will help him put himself in better and better positions all the time. but also be a bigger voice in the team. Um, so yeah, looking forward to start working on that.
Yeah. 'Cause, yeah. I mean, I think it's I think people underestimate how not just how important it is to have confidence within the game to kind of show that in your performance. But I think people seem to just I don't know they really rag on Breeze and Cirque to a point where it's like they don't truly think about how I mean I'll be honest like they EG lost a lot of games in that period from about let's see, once they started falling off around 2020, when Ethan and whatnot was leaving the team and Tarek left and everything, they lost a lot of games. There were roster changes that were happening. People were taking breaks, and it was they were Cirque at least was definitely the one he just stayed through it all, and he really struggled. The team struggled. They couldn't win games, and I think people just have a hard time seeing, when you've been losing for so long, which sounds terrible, but when you've been losing for
Yeah,
so long, it can be really hard to kind of bounce back from that. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort, and just because they're playing bad doesn't mean that they're not trying. It just means, you know, anyone would in that position would be struggling.
yeah.
And
Especially
so,
like you've gone from being number one in the world, which they
yes,
were at one point,
yes, hmm
winning big tournaments. Then suddenly, like you're struggling to break into the top 30.
yeah,
That's, I mean, mentally that's incredibly tough. And Counter Strike is a game that is also so much about confidence.
yes,
I'm a big, well, I guess for this podcast we might call it soccer, but I'm a big soccer fan, and I kind of say that like every single Counter Strike player is the same as being a striker in soccer. Like you need to be able to like just play off of instinct
yes,
because everything is about like if a guy clicks on your head 0.01 seconds before you click on his, then that's it. I mean, you
yep,
lost the duel, right? It's all or nothing. It's so much about very small margins that and confidence. I mean, we can work towards being able to do all these things without confidence, and that's a goal of mine. But confidence makes it a lot easier, and it's very difficult to have a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in yourself. When I mean, in EPL, EG as an organization lost 16 games in a row, right?
yeah, it
That's
was bad,
like
yeah,
that's like losing every game in 3 seasons, and also losing
yeah,
the first games in the fourth. That is it's unprecedented, and I mean, you can say, I mean, yeah, that's why we're saying they're bad, but there's also I mean, I'm not gonna say they've been great throughout that period of time, but obviously they have done things poorly.
sure,
But
yeah,
there's also just like a ton of circumstance then
right,
constantly make it harder and harder to break out of. Like I can give a very good example in Coming Flames. We went on lands, we did amazing. Everyone was praising us. We did well at the major. I am fall all these things. Then we came back online, and then there were a lot of reasons for why we performed horribly online. We were bad at like handling being the favorites in the game. We started playing different because we felt like we didn't have to take risk against bad teams. But
yes,
that was our play style, was taking
hmm
space and taking risks. So suddenly we were very bad. Also, it's less hype to play online, less
hmm
adrenaline. You need to get used to that. All those things. So then we started losing a lot. Like we kept, in my opinion, we kept becoming a better and better and better team because we were working really hard, talking about a lot of like things. We got better understanding of the game, but we had nowhere near the confidence we had when we were playing, like when we came winning a lot of games. So our results were still worse, even though I know that every single player was better, the entire
yes,
team was better, but we just didn't like have the utmost confidence in all our duels and taking space and all those things. So then the results were way worse.
yep,
These things matter so much in Counter Strike that you're like confident in the situations you're in.
yeah. Uh, Moving into the last player for EG who, you know, seems to have a lot of confidence. At least he doesn't. He's not worried about talking trash to some of the best players in the world
Yeah,
at his first LAN. But Hext, he's mentioned before that playing in at least I believe it might have even been after the group stage of Blast that he mentioned that playing in tier one, he said it didn't feel that different, but that he had to focus a lot more on his decision making, in
Mm.
terms of just thinking more about the decisions he's making within the game, and maybe there's more, not that he wasn't before, but maybe that you know there's just more decisions to make, and so you have to recognize that when those decisions are being made, and kind of think about it a little bit deeper. And also kind of the way that you've been kind of talking about how the team likes to play, which I think is very apparent when you watch them play, in terms of being a team where it's kind of building off of what other players are doing on the map. um, I can see why for someone like Hex, right? That's going to be something that's going to be a little bit more difficult for him, just with less structure. He's going to have to, especially being the entry, on many rounds. He's got to be the one to kind of take initiative, or know when to make certain decisions and when not to. So I guess,
Yeah.
how much has that kind of coming into the team, was that something, how has that, I guess, evolved over the past couple months?
I'd even I'd even make the argument that probably Jaden or Hicks didn't think too much about his decision making prior to joining our team. At least not to the level where he understands now, like
Yes.
how many factors actually go into what might seem like a small little decision of, let's say he's playing A and Mirage, like if he's at Ticket, or if he's playing on the balcony, or if he's playing ramp, like in the middle of the round. Um, he definitely didn't have a lot of variables to make that decision when he
Right.
started on the team, and now he understands there's probably like 10 things that decides what makes sense
Yep.
out of like those three different positions. So he, like the way he described to me, I guess, is kind of like there's like a whole new world that has opened to him in terms of how deep the game actually is. Um, so there's of course a lot of adjustment on his side, but I think he's done a good job. He's like he's getting a lot of criticism from the rest of the team. He's the guy that's getting by far the most criticism, which makes sense because, well, he's probably making the most mistakes because he's the least experienced, and
Yes.
that's just how it is.
Hmm.
But he's really like soaking it all in and very humble about the whole experience. He's still, even though he's getting so much criticism, I think the number one great thing about Hext is that if you receive so much criticism and you know that you have so much to learn, that he's still able to make calls, take initiative. Obviously, it's not always correct what he's calling, but the fact that you're calling means that now we can learn to call better. If you don't say anything, you don't take any initiative, then it's very difficult to become good at taking initiative and making calls. So the fact that he's like willing to put himself out there is extremely important, and why I would say we appreciate him a lot on the team. Um, so I mean, it's been great working with him. On top of that, he also just brings a ton of energy into the team. I think he's been like we've noticed that when we feel pressure on the team, like we definitely also need to like work on playing officials. The pressure can get to us, and Hex is probably the number one reason why that doesn't happen more, because he knows how to make the team atmosphere a little bit more light,
Yes.
with his trash talking, with his jokes in middle of the round. Like we were at halftime in one of the official games we played, and I think Jaden's score was like 4-12 or something,
Yeah.
And then he's sitting in halftime. He's going like, what's crazy? What's crazy is that even when I think he's both said like, even when I'm this shit, we're still shitting on them, Or he was saying like, what's crazy? I'm gonna end this game with 30 kills, I mean, that's crazy. And he's just just talking a lot of shit, yelling people are going to the airport, or whatever it is, and that just brings a smile on everyone's face, and you can forget a little bit more that you know all the pressure, because I mean, I don't think EG's putting a lot of pressure on us. I don't think we're putting too much pressure on ourselves either. I don't think I'm putting a lot of pressure on the team, but being EG, there's a lot of pressure from the outside because
Yes.
EG has performed poorly for a long time. So like we know if we lose one game, we know that the community is going to feel like everyone needs to be benched, and
Yes.
EG is a joke as a team, as a project. I think we can. even like we played with a stand-in in Rush where we had like 1 day of practice at Blast, right?
Yep.
And we lose to Face, and then people are like,
Yeah.
Edge, like
Yeah, I
why,
know. Yeah.
why are you guys even playing? Why are you trying? And it's like, damn,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for like we play one game, we stand in, and we're playing against the best team in the world, and,
Yeah.
and everything's against us. But even so I think there is a lot of pressure. So and also we don't play as many officials, and when we started playing, some of these guys haven't, because EG had a long break before we started this team. Just there was like 5 months without any official games for any of these
Yes.
EG players. So it's you need to get used to playing big games as well. It was also the first LAN, for a lot of players because of COVID, and also then EG
Right, yeah.
hasn't qualified for that many
No, no, they
studio
no, they did
events.
not.
So I think that's when we played on the stage at the major as an example. That was
Right, yeah.
you could maybe like point to Jaden and be like, oh, he's the only guy that's never played on a stage before. But for Nealon, he didn't play on a stage. I think like since Starladder Major,
Yeah.
Cirque, Vince, Tim, all like prior to COVID happening. So even if you did it 3 years ago,
Yeah, I mean
it's
it's different.
yeah, you still have to relearn that skill.
Yes.
You still need to get used to it again. So
Yes.
but Jaden helps with when pressure is high, definitely. So I think he's done everything that you can expect out of a rookie. The next thing rookies also need to like learn how to work. So like when you watch a demo, what is it that you're supposed to get out of this demo?
Yes.
And what is it you can actually do to prepare better for a practice and have more value in the practice? So he's working through that too, but he's working in the right direction and at a speed that I'm happy with. So that's good.
Yeah. Um I guess kind of, at least especially with that, when I look back at the new roster, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even really count the blast groups. I really don't. I just,
That was a struggle also with automatic having to
yes,
travel
exactly.
mid tournament and
Yes,
everything. It was definitely a tough tournament.
yes. And so there definitely wasn't a whole lot of, like I said, I mean, there just wasn't a lot of time. It was just there was a lot of just playing and then I got to go to the next event. Maybe a week break, but that's really it. Um, and so I would imagine the expectations for this team going into next season are going to be a lot, maybe not like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, EG needs to be a top five team in the world. That's not really realistic. I think, with the direction that this project looks like it's heading in, I guess I was just kind of curious as to, obviously, what are the kind of expectations that you guys are trying to, go for? Is that something that's still trying to be figured out, since the season hasn't really begun yet? Um, yeah.
I think I mean, I'm never too focused on like we need to be top 10 or we need to
Yes.
be for me it's I just want to see the players progress on the things that we've agreed that they need to get better at, and that's the most important for them to get better at the fastest. But I mean, we like and that's ultimately what's going to decide if I'm happy or not, if when we're going to evaluate at the end of next season. um, but I mean, like, we can talk a little bit about results. I think the season we just had, honestly, for me was like, I think we won one game that we quote unquote weren't supposed to in the Fury game at Del Mar. Then I
Okay.
think we lost one game that we quote unquote weren't supposed to against 9C at the major. But then outside of that, I feel like it was like an okay season result wise. I think we lost to the teams that are like, commonly in the top 15, 10 ish. And then we beat the teams that aren't.
Yes.
So, we beat Movistar, we beat Eternal Fire, which are teams that I would hope that we beat most times when we play them. Like, no disrespect to them, but I feel like those are teams that we should beat most of the time.
Yes.
And then again, we lost to like Mouse, we lost to NIP, we lost to Liquid, like Cloud9, these sort of teams, which I would probably all say, that's expected that we're supposed to lose to those teams where we're at right now. So
Yes.
I feel we kind of fell in where I sort of expected us to. Obviously, I still think you could see a growth in a lot of those defeats. Like at Blast Groups, we we didn't really. Well, an NIP game was decent, but
Yes.
Big and Face. That was also with Rush, I think, both of them.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I
they
guess
were.
I guess it makes sense. So,
Yes.
but yeah, we weren't close at all. But even the first two games at EPL groups also weren't competitive. I guess Liquid and Cloud9.
Yes.
And then I think moving, even though we all actually also lost, I think pretty big to Cloud9 at the major. I still think
Mhm.
if you like break down the rounds, I think we played a lot better. I obviously think the RMR against Liquid, we could have won that game.
Yes.
So that was also way more competitive. Uh, so we have improved, but I, like result wise for next season, I would expect that we will start to win some of those games. I don't believe we should like necessarily in the next season like consistently beat the top 15 teams, not the 15 to 10 either. But I expect that we can like that's sort of where we should rank as well in how good we are. Around that like 15 mark, I think is a fair expectation to have. We've been like we hit 20 at max if we look at HLTV this season, and uh, hovering somewhere around 2025. And honestly, I feel like that's like a fair assessment that we're around the 20th best team in the world, based on what we've shown this season. And obviously, I want us to build on that, and I want to be, you know, I think like it's hard to say. And again, that's why I don't focus too much
Yes.
on results because it's so much either you hit it or you don't.
Right.
Like I would probably also say top 10 for next season is a reach. But I feel like around the 15 mark is very realistic, and that's sort of where how good I expect us to be. But obviously, I'll always strive to be the best we possibly can,
Yes.
and I do think we can beat any team. I mean, like Liquid result wise has done great, and we were like one round away from beating them. So obviously, I do believe it's possible. Um, but yeah, mostly it's just like we need to grow, we need more ownership, we need more initiative, we need leadership from everyone in the team. Everyone needs to step up and take more responsibility. And if we do that, I'm gonna be happy. But if we do that, probably results will also follow. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like I really, I tend to agree. At least like in terms of the results last year, at least from my perspective, I always thought the team improved pretty much every event they went to. I think the only event that people could look at and be like, what really happened here is probably the showdown at Blast,
yeah,
which I think is fair, but I think there's also context to it in the sense that um, you guys are preparing for the major. Fluxo, the team that beat you guys, obviously they didn't qualify. So this, or at least for the major. So this was their last hurrah. This was their last event for the year to really push, and they have really good players. Luke Halsey's really good. Phelps, obviously. And so not to mention it's an online event, and there's just a lot of context there where it's still obviously a disappointment, but
yeah,
there's context behind it that I don't think people were it just felt like because EG is the team that lost, it was a lot
yeah.
more focused on EG without even looking at the fact that the EU showdown was also a mess. Not to mention complexity also lost as well. So, I
We
think
we
there's
definitely
definitely. Mhm.
learned a lot. I'm not necessarily sure we would have done something different looking back,
Yes.
but we did like the way we spend our time leading into the showdown was definitely about we were practice leading into showdown. We were trying a bunch of new things to have that ready for the major, and we didn't. So normally I like to like settle our play style before a tournament. That's the like we're playing to win probably like some of the last couple of days of practice, and like this is the style that we want to play. But before you end up like settling on how you want to play, that's the period of time where you're like experimenting, you're adding new things to your playbook, you're trying new play styles, and we were kind of still in that way of practicing, which I definitely don't think helped us. Um, but we spent a lot of time afterwards like discussing if that was the right approach. At least it made us like more aware now as a team that will mess with our performance if that's the case. But yeah, again, I don't necessarily know if we would have changed it even looking back with the conclusions we had. Other things obviously also like we still played rounds bad. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
excuse the entire experience by just we're preparing for the major.
Right.
There's a game that we should win more times than not. And
Yes.
but yeah, we learn from it, we move on, and that's the most important.
Yeah. I mean, especially, um, at least I thought that was probably the best Dust 2 has looked, even though you guys lost. I still think that was one of the better Dust 2 games in terms of just kind of seeing how the team was playing. Um, because before then it really did feel like it was just kind of like Dust 2 is either like I mean, that game against Eternal Fire was a landslide, but then all the other ones were a landslide the other way. So it was just kind of like,
Yeah,
but I think at least like from how the team was playing together, I could see there was a lot that you guys put a lot of effort into the Dust 2, and we're trying to improve that as a focus point.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But thank God it's gone.
yeah, yeah. Don't have to worry about it anymore. It does suck that obviously you guys put all that work into it. Now it's gone, but
Yeah,
yeah, it is. Definitely. Um, so I guess kind of talking a little bit more about like the coaching staff. I've kind of started to piece it together a little bit in the sense that I know that in terms of like how even just this isn't even just particular to EG. This is just how esports is in general. It does feel like at times, at least from the public standpoint, it can be hard to figure out what coaches are doing what. The titles are so weird. I won't lie, director of athletics does seem a little strange as a title. For
sure.
to be like I assume it from my perspective, it looks like that's probably like a director of operations type of thing for depending on what esport. Um, but
Yeah, I would say for balance, I mean, the way I would describe it, most people would probably get it, is like I would call him the GM of
yes,
CS:GO.
yes,
He
absolutely,
is
yes,
the guy that makes the decisions about everything CS:GO, basically.
yes,
That's his job.
yes. Um, and so I guess what I'm wondering is, especially with Malik coming in pretty late into the season, kind of, what are your roles? Because obviously, people who don't know anything or don't look into anything for EG, they just see, coach, coach, and coach, and they just go, well, what's
Yeah,
the point of having three? Like, what is each, what do they do exactly? So,
yeah.
if you could explain, or what would be the best way that you could explain kind of how maybe what do you tend to focus on compared to what Malik does compared to, obviously with Valens now being, kind of the head of operations. I'm not really sure how involved strategically or anything he is with the team anymore. Like he used to be like an analyst. But kind of how do those roles all kind of intertwine?
Yeah. So yeah, I think with Valence, we can start at the top of the food chain.
Yes,
As I said, he's sort of like the GM. He's our boss. Everyone that works in CS:GO in EG, and it's his job to make sure the Counter Strike division runs as smoothly as possible. In the end, he's like in charge of that the blueprint teams have the biggest talents they can have, that they have the environment to develop in, that the blueprint team has the taking the right direction. We have the most competitive roster we can field, and obviously he's working with the coaches on each team to make this happen, right? For Malik, he's the strategic coach, and it's actually across all the teams.
oh, okay,
'Cause he's both working with our roster. He's working with the black, white, gold. He's working with every
yes,
single roster.
oh wow,
So he's putting a little bit more work into our team in like what's gonna be like preseason boot camp and leading into the major. So like
right,
then he will spend more time with our team, but he's actually helping everyone out. And what we kind of settled on is that in terms of like how he's helping us, because he isn't there like every day, there's obviously going to be a lot of things that he will miss out on, a lot of discussion he's not a part of,
yes,
general direction, all these things. I try and like update him, give him, I tell him, hey, we're focusing on this today, we're working on this, and me and him have meetings about what the individual goals of each player is and all these things. But we kind of focused, and I mean, for us at EG, this is also something we're figuring out as we go. That's also why I said earlier that I don't think the correct thing is to like bring in 10 people at once, because I feel like we need to, even though maybe at one point in the future I would like to have 10 people,
yes,
but we need to learn how to make the most out of everyone, and that's easy to do kind of like one by one. Um, but yeah, Malik is more focused in on giving feedback to me and helping me with his experience, and like sharing things that he has encountered in the past and things he think I can tweak and do differently and these sort of things. So he's like yeah, someone that I can like bounce ideas with. And then he's helping some of the players individually. Again, we felt that made the most sense when he's not there every single day. then it's hard for him, to come in and like change how we play Dust 2 if he's only seen like 1 out of 5 Dust 2, as an example. But he can maybe like add small things, like plays or things like that, right? So he's still doing that too. But yeah, so he's helping people individually, but also just like helping every single coach and every single team, just kind of, you know, coming forward with his experience in these things. So that's helped us. And especially on some maps like Dust 2, that was my insta ban on my previous team. That's been a map that he's been very good on in the past. So he definitely also helped us when we started putting more work into that, just like giving us some simple solutions to issues we had.
Yeah.
My role is then, the full-time coach of the blue team. Um, so yeah, every day in practice, making sure we know what we're working on, feedback to the players, on the same, make sure we're on just everything, a coach does, I guess.
Yes.
I guess that's the easiest role to explain. I think people mostly have an idea of what a coach is supposed to do. So I'm doing whatever's in that role. I know people have theorized that maybe I wasn't too involved with like in-game things, but that's definitely the case. That's also my job, just as any coach for any team. And then we have Hepa as
Yes.
the analyst, who is also working with every team, but mostly our team. And he's the guy that's providing all the information anti-strat on our opponents. I will say right now on our team, the players also actually do put in a good amount of work themselves, looking at demos. I also watch them, but Hepa is like organizing things for us and also sharing his thoughts and making sure we always have all the information we need, even when I mean, I've been extremely impressed. Like some of these tournaments are very rough, because we get told at like midnight that we're playing at noon tomorrow against an opponent, and Hepa has never missed. Like we always have the information that we need to have, even when there's a deadline that's incredibly rough, like
Yeah.
midnight to noon. That's not that's not optimal.
No.
But he's always there with the information. Also, he's working with the balance as well, working with our data science team, where to like build out. Um, we're still in like the development phase, I would say. In CSGO, I know it's more developed in like League of Legends, but figuring out how we can use our data science team and like what value that can bring to the Counter-Strike division. So Hip and Val's also working on that. And then obviously like we have, head coaches for the white team, the black team, the gold team that
Yes.
do exactly the same as I do, just for their
Just for
roster.
those rosters. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the breakdown that has been incredibly hard for everyone to understand
Yes.
in the entire scene.
Yes, it has been yeah, it's been mocked about just a few times. Um, but kind of going into the Blueprint project a little bit. Obviously, this is we're kind of getting closer to the end here, but
That's fine.
just yeah, just I guess I obviously know you haven't been you're not really all that involved, right, with the Blueprint project in terms of the the EG Black and EG White teams. But what are some of the things? Because obviously you still have to keep up with it somewhat, just because the potential of certain players potentially moving to the main rosters is something obviously to always consider. Obviously not right now. I don't think anyone um, would have reasonably expected that. I think going into next season, I think that would have been quite drastic, maybe. But how have you seen the Blueprint project develop? We're starting to see roster moves happen a lot more with both teams. And kind of, is there anything that you're excited about with it, or hopeful that might develop in the next, coming months? There seems to be a lot of ECL seasons, so yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely obviously my main priority is not to keep up with them, not at least
yes,
in season, but especially now when we're out of season and those teams still have games. I spend more time keeping up with them. I watched a lot of their games, most of their games actually, here when we have had off season. In the ECL and the CCT. And I have access to, like, they record their practices,
mm,
and I have access to that, so I can also tune in, see how it's going, hear how the players are communicating, like what kind of roles that they can fill. I think at the end of every season, uh, we should always evaluate on what's the strongest roster we can field. That doesn't necessarily mean that we'll make changes, but I think you should always evaluate at least, if you can make changes. Sometimes the answer is no, sometimes it's yes. So I think it's still my job to evaluate the players if there are any of them that could be interesting, how close they are to be interesting. Maybe even also like have conversations with a couple of them and just to get to know them better, but also letting them know what my vision is for the main roster or whatever we're gonna call it. So they also know like what I'm hoping to when I tune into their practice or an official game, what I'm hoping to hear from them, like increase their chances of making it to playing EPL and Blast and all these things. So now we also have we're playing the Cash Cup right now with a little bit of a mix. I would say part of it is getting ESL well ranking points to secure a Katowice invite, but part of it is also like evaluating the blueprint players.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of players that have been doing very well. I think Wiz on the AWP obviously have been playing
Yes.
very well for a long time. So it's cool to get to know him a little bit better. I think George has done very well in Nouns. Obviously, he's new to like the Blueprint project, but it's cool to get to know him a little bit more. Like he was tearing it up at the RMR.
Yeah, he was.
I think if we look over on the other roster, obviously they've been going to a lot of big events. I've heard I haven't been had as much like first-hand experience, but I heard this is putting in a ton of work on that roster. So just all these players, I think. I mean, there are definitely opportunities to bring in people in the future. I also think I mean, we've been happy with Hex, so that was somewhat of a success. Of course, we also need to keep a balance of how like we do need some experience, right? As I,
Yes.
as I said, right now on the team, I think we actually need to work on is like leadership and ownership.
Mm.
So if that's what we need on the team, it can be hard to bring in more rookies
Right. Yes.
if you're looking for leadership. So but yeah, I think it's good to. I mean, I'm hoping that we get all the biggest and greatest talents North America, or I guess for me just the Americas. I'd be fine with having like South American players too, but um, have those on the blueprint projects because it's so much easier to scout players. It's so much easier to know if it's going to be a good fit because I already have like a ton of voice com videos I can watch through. I can put them on a mixed roster in a cash cup, and I can see if they fit in well with the other players. And so yeah, I'm incredibly excited with the Blueprint project. And we didn't spend a ton of time in NA this past season, but I think for next season there's a chance we might spend more time in North America. And we're spending this off season also talking about how we can have like practices against each other where we maybe I tell the black or white team that, hey, as I mentioned earlier, like we had issues with people playing aggressive on nuke against us. Maybe I
Right.
can, message the coach from the black or white team and be like, hey, can you guys play a little more aggressive in yard on nuke this practice? And then, I mean, it can be fine for them too, because like every team needs to be able to play aggressive. So that can be the practice where they practice that, and we know we have an issue playing against it, so we can practice it, playing against it. So there's a lot of benefits as well to having like good competitive rosters within the same organization.
Yeah, it's definitely an ambitious project, but I think um, not only will it just kind of scale with how good upcoming players in North America just end up being, as long as we EG ends up picking the right people or whatever. But also I think like a key point that you mentioned was being able to potentially scrim other teams within the project is massive when you consider the fact that I know scrim partners in NA is sometimes hit and miss. Um,
Yeah,
so at least that way there's if you can't do it externally, you might as well try to do it internally, right?
yeah.
So
Also, whenever there is like big North American tournaments, or like let's say when we were practicing for the showdown, the
mhm.
best teams that were in North America that we could practice against were the other teams in the showdown,
Yes,
and
yes,
we don't want to practice them
no,
leading into the showdown because we can play against all of them.
Yes.
So then, it's cool that we can like ask the blueprint teams to be ready and available, and we can. I mean, if we're practicing our blueprint teams over and over, that also means that complexity will be practicing them over and over. So we should, in theory, also be getting better practice than complexity in that specific scenario.
Right. Yes. Um, kind of have a couple, lighter questions to kind of end it off. Um,
Yeah,
so you asked a question that I thought was pretty. It's an interesting question, not even just in esports, but also in regular sports as well, that people like to talk about a lot, which is just kind of, do you believe that someone can be, a great coach without having, professional experience, or, uh, without having to basically compete at the high level? Can they still be a successful coach? And I was kind of curious when I saw the question, what your opinion was of it, um, after
yeah.
seeing the community reaction.
I'm probably biased, because if I don't think it's possible, then what the hell am I doing here,
Yeah.
But I do believe it's possible. But I do believe that, like in my mind, all the hours that someone has spent becoming professional, that's sort of like the amount of hours that they've like also spent studying the game.
Yes.
So if you want to be a great coach without having played professionally, you just need to spend that amount of hours analyzing the game. And I did that in League of Legends, and I'm have also done it in Counter Strike. I don't believe I'm a finished product. Probably never will feel that I am, but that's still what I'm doing. I'm just making sure I put in a ton of time understanding the game, analyzing the game, and I don't see why that should necessarily be worth less. You could say that some people argue that you don't have the same understanding for what the players are going through being on stage and all these things, but one is that obviously it's not. I've been a competitor all my life in sports. Obviously, I haven't necessarily played in front of 15,000 people in an arena. But I mean, you also feel the pressure as a coach. Honestly, like going through the experiences being on stage as a coach, you also pick up on those things. But and then also, I think, I mean, the effects that it have on a lot of people is also very well documented in the world of sports psychology. So
Yes.
there's a lot of information out there that I have also spent a lot of time processing and um, reading up on. But yeah, I think when it comes to those things, it's just if you don't, I think it's just important that if you don't believe if you don't know what the players are going through, don't act like you do, and then just ask them.
Yes.
Like just talk to them,
Hmm.
and then through that you can be helpful,
Right.
even if you haven't been in their shoes before. So yeah, I definitely do believe it's possible.
Great. And then I know this isn't really a decision that you can make, but I tend to kind of rag on the marketing team a little bit at times, at least in terms of like, with a few different things. But uh, just was wondering if, obviously in the League of Legends team has, I think believe it's called the EG files, where they kind of
Mm,
chronicle, their season throughout. And I know that's a little bit easier for them because they're kind of just based all in the same area and whatnot. Um,
yeah,
and also they're not that far from headquarters, I don't think. Um,
we do also have offices in Los Angeles,
oh, okay.
which we
Yes.
also have in Seattle, but
Hmm.
there is also in Los Angeles, so
Yeah.
where the League of Legends team is located.
Right. And so is that something that like the would the players at least, do you think, be open to something like that for their teams? Because it would be interesting because you have, there's multiple teams within the organization, and so it would be kind of, just I don't know. I thought it would be interesting, but I didn't know if that was something that like players are
Yeah.
like, no, let's not do that.
I think we definitely have some players on the team that would prefer it not to
Right.
happen,
Yes.
but I mean, I think they've all, or at least like Automatic, Cirque, and Breeze have all tried it before. Some of it just has never been released, and I mean, Automatic on Cloud9, I think, had a camera in his face
Yep.
a lot of the time. Cirque and Breeze have both, I think, in each. Maybe it was an NRG or maybe it was an EG, but I know they said it was just like didn't end up getting released.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I personally enjoy it. I think it's cool, fun. Again, like anything we can do to encourage people to care about what we do, I think is great. So I think we also did Incoming Flames. We made a documentary about our major run. Um, so for me, I mean, I think it's cool. Obviously, there is definitely a lot more cost
Right. Yes.
to it doing it for our team compared to League of Legends team. As you said, you
Yes.
can find someone that lives in Los Angeles, and, and they can shoot everything in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Like being an NA Counter Strike team, we're I mean we're traveling like
Yeah.
200 days a year or something. So you need to book them into hotels. You need to like pay their food for the entire year basically, and yeah. So I mean, there's definitely more cost. I mean, I have talked a little bit with EG about it, and I mean, I don't think they're necessarily against it. I don't think it's necessarily like impossible to find the budget, but I think the priority for the CS department has also just been to let's get it on track, and then when it's like on track, then then we can start focusing more on content and everything. But I think they're each just also like giving us a little bit of space to get things rolling before we need to have like cameras on us all the time,
Yes.
uh, which could also be appreciated because it has we have players that have gone through some dark times in their careers, so I think it's been
Hmm.
cool for them also to be left with a little bit
Yeah.
of space to like recover and recoup and get back on top. So, but yeah, I do believe that the future do hold more content, but um, it can be difficult for the players to do content in periods of time where everything is not going very well.
Right.
So
Yes.
potentially that also has something to do with it.
Yep. Yeah. Just wanted to throw that out there as a little,
Yeah,
as one of the three Evil Geniuses fans in the world, just kind of had to, put that out into the ether. Um,
yeah.
but you know, I guess so. This is, last question. Just this is kind of a troll question. I won't lie. When is EG going to get enough rocket scientists to rival SpaceX? And can I please get a T-shirt that is? No, I'm just kidding. But I guess kind of, what I'm really asking there, I guess, is kind of, you know, I guess in terms of, the coaching staff, like how, what's the goal at least, or is there any like, hmm, are there more coaches that are potentially coming in or analysts, or is it more so just like assistants? Kind of like what is the, because you guys, it sounds like you guys have like, a foundation, and it's, now it's kind of like, okay, well, if someone's being overworked, what can we do to help them?
Yeah,
But
I definitely think the future holds more coaching staff in EG. Exactly when, uh, how, exactly what role, because like we're also in like it's also about giving. It's not only about like the team that I'm a coach for. It's about every single team in the Blueprint project too. So that's why, like for example, Malik has been covering a little bit of everything. I would definitely very much enjoy myself having a full time assistant coach or whatever we should call the role. Um, that would be great. I also think we need to have maybe one or two more analysts at some point because right now HEPA is assisting four
yeah,
teams, and if the tournaments overlap, then I mean that's a lot of work for
that's
HEPA.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I definitely see things like that. But I mean, further along in the future, then as I said, I mean, I don't see why we don't necessarily have like an op coach in the future, why we don't have a lurk coach, why we don't have a anchor coach or like things like that. But as I said before, I don't think it's the correct move to like add everyone at once. So I think it's gonna be we add a role, we work to make that role work well, and empower the person that has that role so they also like confident in performing that role without too much supervision. And then when we've achieved that, then I think we can look at, of course, a budget also needs to be there, but then we can look at potentially then adding a new role or a new person to help out. But I think it's gonna come, in like small changes, like adding one guy at a time. And obviously, the better results we make, probably EG will also be more likely to invest more money into helping us.
yes,
So I would imagine there's also probably going to be some degree to EG seeing that the more they invest in the coaching staff, we actually also improve faster because that kind of proves why we should add more people.
yes,
But yeah, it's gonna be like one step at a time.
awesome, yeah. Anything you want to say at the end of the little podcast here?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanna. I mean, I already before we started, I thanked you for putting in all the work in doing things like this. I think the reason why I wanted to the reason why I reached out to you to ask to be on this is because I think we need to be incredibly grateful that we have people that follow EG that are willing to put in the amount of effort that I know it requires to cover Counter Strike, League of Legends, Dota. I mean, even if you just covered one esport title, that would have been incredible to me. um, People that care enough to like tweet, even if the tweets aren't always. I'm not only talking about you, but just in general. Like
Yeah,
even
no,
if
I
the
get it.
tweets aren't always 100% supportive or whatever, I just still that you're that also shows that you're passionate. Like you want things to go well. So you're also telling us when you think we're doing bad. I'm just incredibly happy that we have people that care enough to do any of these things. So I just want to thank everyone, you, but also, I mean, everyone else. We have like, I think, on the CSGO department, we probably have like 10 incredibly supportive people that like every single tweet I've ever put out into the universe. And then obviously we have more that are like following um, still regularly. And I also, of course, appreciate those guys. I read most things that are written on Twitter, Reddit, HLTV, good and bad. Um, and honestly, I appreciate every single comment, also the bad ones, because again, to me, that means people care somewhat about what we're
Yes.
doing. And if no one cared, then I wouldn't be able to do this. I would have to work an office job, which I really don't want to do. So the fact that people care is giving me an opportunity to live this life that I am so grateful for. So thank I'm just thankful for everyone that follows. So that's just what I want to say. I don't think we can ever say that enough as people competing in esports. So yeah, thanks to everyone.